Hello my friends. Once again I welcome all of you to my video lecture. Today I want to offer my analysis of a type of literary criticism known as New Historicism. It is very much eclectic in its approach and it attempts a reinterpretation of history as well as literary text. Now we have to understand the very term clearly. Now if there is New Historicism, there has to be Old Historicism. And the very term implies that the New Historicism is opposed to Old Historicism. Now let us see the difference between the two. The Old Historicists considered history to be the record of objective events. For them, the past was a fixed kind of thing. They viewed history as stable, linear, recoverable narrative of fact. Therefore, they saw literature as the reflection of the historical world in which it was produced. But for the new historicist, the notion of history is altogether different. For them, history is not a matter of great dates, great events, great rulers. For the new historicist, history is a matter of power, politics, authority, ideology, and subversion. Let me repeat it. For a neo historicist, history is a matter of politics, power, ideology, authority, and subversion. The major force behind new historicism has been the French philosophical historian Michel Foucault. He saw history in terms of power. And then the question comes, what is power? According to Foucault, power is the complex of forces that produces what happens. It is not simply a tool of repression. It does not mean that somebody is at the helm of the affairs and he is the center of power. In fact, the power is in a state of flux. In every space, there is the struggle of power. Power is constituted by discourses and practices in the society. Now, what is discourse according to him? Foucault defines discourse as a language practice. The language is used by various people belonging to various professions and various institutions for the purposes to do with power relationships between people. Then again, he calls discourse a cluster of claims to knowledge. Knowledge is power, power is knowledge. Then he says that we have discourse, not truth. And discourse is not just a way of speaking and writing, but an ideology which influences the thinking of the members of a given society. Therefore, his view of history is pessimistic. He does not consider history to be an evolutionary process towards the present. According to Foucault, no historical event has a single cause. Each event is tied into a vast web of economic, political, and social factors. Therefore, Foucault urged historians to be aware that they are also historically situated. Therefore, it is very natural that under the influence of Michel Foucault, the new historicists view history skeptically. The new historicists, therefore, advocate the parallel reading of literary and non-literary text, usually of the same period. It is not that they give more importance to the literary text, less importance to the non-literary text. They treat non-literary text as co-text. So to say, the historicity of text and textuality of history are given equal weight, equal importance. In the process, the new historicists become not only the critic of literature but also the critic of culture. The boundary between text and background is erased and then everything becomes text, and literature has no boundary. As a type of literary criticism, New Historicism emerged in 1980s in reaction to the text-only approach of New Criticism, Structuralism and Post-Structuralism, particularly New Criticism. The New Critics treated the text as self-contained, self-referential object, whereas the New Historicist, if he or she has to treat a text, he will read the text, he will also read the other materials of the period in which the text was produced. For example, he will read the legal record, he will read the fashion, he will read, the politics of the period, he will read the religious practices of the period, he will read the letters and diaries of the period. In the process, the analysis of the text in question will get a new dimension. Therefore, we can say that the New Historicism gave a new dimension to the reading strategy of text. And I personally believe that this approach will not die. There will always be the importance of reading the text from this direction. Now, in this regard, we have to take the name of Stephen Greenblatt specifically. In fact, he is the leading critic, he is the guiding force of New Historicism. It was he who coined the term New Historicism in his book, Renaissance Self-Fashioning from Moore to Shakespeare. And his reading of Shakespeare is very much interesting. According to him, if we are to understand Shakespeare's plays, Shakespeare's works, we have to be conversant with the politics and also the religious practices of Renaissance England during the time of Elizabeth I and James I. Because Shakespeare wrote plays during these two periods. And then he wrote many essays. In one of his critical essays, Shakespeare and Exorcists, Stephen Greenblatt journeys back and forth between literature, politics, and history. And in doing so, he proves that literature has no border. Another leading figure of New Historicism is Louis Montrose. He wrote many essays, and one of his essays is A Midsummer Night's Dream and the Shaping Fantasies of Elizabethan Culture. This essay brings out the historicity of text and the textuality of history. In this essay, he tries to prove that the drama A Midsummer Night's Dream creates the culture by which it is created, shapes the fantasies by which it is shaped. So this is a very good example of new historicist approach to literature. In conclusion, I would like to draw your attention to some of the points for which New Historicism came under attack. The first is that when we read a literary text, we are also concerned about some of the intrinsic qualities of the text, which we can call literariness or we can call literary merits. But the new historicists are not at all bothered about the literary merits of a text. All the time, interpreting literature in terms of power, politics, does not do justice to the text. And the erasure of the distinction between history and text also cannot be taken very easily. Nevertheless, the approach adopted by the new historicists gives a freshness to the study of literature. Thank you so much.